We're now live on YouTube.
Well, good morning, everybody, and I hope my chairmanship will be fairly short-lived. But the first item on the agenda is to receive declarations of interest under procedural rule number 8. Anybody got any declarations of interest?
Chairman, would you like me to do a roll call and members can come here and if they have any interests?
Yes, if
Yes,
you wish,
please,
James. Yes. I was just trying to push on quickly.
Councillor Adams.
As requested.
Come on,
Councillor Adams.
By all means, do a roll call. Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Adams, do you have any declarations?
None.
Councillor Brennan?
no declarations.
Councillor Bullman?
Yeah, no declarations.
Councillor Catchpole?
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Karimi Gouvan-Lou?
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Kelly?
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor King?
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Morrell?
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Nurden?
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Prutton?
Present, no declarations.
And Councillor Shaw?
No declarations.
And we also have Councillor Mancini Boyle present.
Present and no declarations.
Right.
Thank you.
I've seen Sue Holland.
James, yeah, you forgot Councillor
Sorry,
Holland.
did I miss Sue Holland? Sorry. Councillor Holland.
Yes, I'm present,
Oh, how
no
dare you forget
declarations.
her, Jane.
I'm used to it.
Right, so that's done. Have we had, James, any apologies for absence?
We have apologies from Councillor Hartley.
Right, okay. Right, the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of January, which is on page 5. Now, I don't intend to go through them page by page, but if any of you do have any queries on the minutes, can you just indicate what page and what particular that you've got a question on? So has anybody got any questions on the minutes? I don't see any hands
Councillor
going up.
Adams, Sue White has a comment for you, I believe.
Okay, right.
Yes, Chairman. You'll recall that in minute 216, Councillor Kelly requested that we carried out a recorded vote. For clarity, I just wanted to check with him. Having watched back the meeting, I think the intention was that councillors would have their names in the minutes. If he can just confirm that was his intention.
That's correct, so.
Yeah, okay, then so for clarity, I'd just like to propose that the minutes, there's an addition to the minutes relating to minute 2.6 where councillors Adams, Brennan, Holland, Karimi Gouvan-Lou, Kelly, Murrell, Prutton and Shaw voted in favour of the recommendation. Councillor Catchpole voted against the recommendation and Councillor Riley abstained. Therefore, the vote was carried 8 in favour, 1 against and 1 abstention.
Lovely, thank you, Sue.
Okay.
Do you all accept that amendment?
Can I make a comment, please?
Right.
Can I?
Sue Holland, then Sue Prutton.
Yeah, my only comment would be, no offence, but I think it needs to be a councillor that proposes something in the meeting. I would argue under normal circumstances.
If somebody, yeah.
So perhaps it would be, if Councillor Kelly would like to do that, I would suggest that he needs to propose it and somebody else needs to second it.
I do propose that, Chairman.
I'll second. So
I'll amend the minutes accordingly.
right, everybody happy with that amendment, are they?
Yes.
Good. I don't see anybody. Sue Prutton, did you want to say anything?
No, I was putting my hand up in agreement.
All right, fine.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Matters arising, therefore. Anybody got any matters arising? I'll just give a very brief report on the committee recommendations to cabinet, which basically all our recommendations were in line with the recommendations on the cabinet, so they all went through. Anybody else got any matters arising from the minutes? Can they be accepted then as a true record? Right, fine. I haven't got any announcements personally. So we now move to public speaking. Have we got a public speaker or public speakers at all, James?
There's no public speaking, Chairman.
Right, okay. Now we then move on to early intervention and community safety. And I then invite I presume this would be the police presentation. So if the police officer would like to proceed with their presentation, they are here, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you would like to proceed with your presentation.
Hello, it's Amanda Moore here from the Office of the Police and Crime Commission. Can I just check everyone can hear me?
Yes, Amanda. Yep. Well, I can anyway.
Brilliant.
Everybody's indicating they can.
Brilliant. I do apologise.
I'm
on an iPad at the moment due to the fact that we can't use Zoom on our system. So this is it's not how my usual setup is. So I do apologise. Okay. My name's Amanda Moore. I've taken over as the role of Head of Community Safety from John Shalom, who previously did the role, and I took over that role in November. Just to give you a bit of background, the main board for the CSP, as set out by the Crime and Disorder Act, includes all the local authorities, police, probation, fire, CCGs and a range of other partners that are integral to tackling the crime and disorder. The Police Reform and Social Responsibility Act strengthened that relationship between the Police and Crime Commissioners and Community Safety Partnership, so that we could work closely together, mainstream resources and align the funding to give a greater impact on crime and disorder, both at a county-wide level and a locality level. The CCSP is chaired by the OPCCN Chief Executive Mark Stokes, and the financial and the human resources required to support the partnership already exist. They were under Norfolk County Council under Public Health, but the Norfolk County Council and the Office of the Police and Crime Commission have recognised that bringing the resources together can strengthen the support to the CCSP and its partner authorities for the creation of a single community safety team. That community safety team we are developing now, and that is the team I will be heading up. In addition, you will be able to see on the OPCCN website the Memorandum of Understanding that's been agreed and effective since the 9th of November, and that sets out the principles and understanding from the NCC and the Office of the Police and Crime Commission how they will proceed to provide the framework and develop a formal approach to the provision and the support in the partnership. So to give you that background, the current priorities, strategic priorities for the CSP were county lines, domestic abuse and prevent. The presentation I'm going to show you today is how we are going to strengthen that approach and how we are going to formulate a larger approach to ensure that those current priorities are both at a county and at a local level. So hopefully Leah will be able to put my presentation on the screen for yourselves. Leah, is that possible?
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so I am line managed by Gavin Thompson from the Office of the Police and Crime Commission, but as I say, I work on behalf of the CSP. And the approach that we are going to be looking at going forward, if we could go to the next slide, please, Leah. The approach is going to be a county-wide strategic themes and priorities. We have done a strategic assessment, and that is based on evidence-led and also what is the priority in the county-wide, but again, reiterating what is the priority to that locality level. Because each locality priorities, there are unique cases, there are hotspots. The early intervention and acknowledging and reflecting local strategy, one size does not fit all. I think that's important to make that point clear. We'll be looking at that county-wide district priorities and objectives, and what that accountability will be to the CSP is ensuring that we have that structure in place to make sure that the CSP holds those accountable on the areas and the districts as well. What this new approach will also bring is £500,000 worth of funding with it, and that is to support the delivery of the CSP and its priorities. What we will be doing, as I say, will be evidence-based. It will be based on national and local strategy, and the delivery plans have got to be responsive to the needs of the area as well, and those needs will be dynamic, and that will assist in the CSP delivering its outcomes. Could I get you to go to the next slide? Thank you. So what's policy expect and evidence tells us? Well, we know that we've got a statutory responsibility to prevent, and serious violence will come. Serious violence was launched in April 2018. And the main thrust of that strategy was about tackling county lines misuse of drugs, intervention and prevention, supporting communities in the partnership, and an effective law enforcement and criminal justice response as well. COVID has had an impact on that. That duty was due out in 2020, but that has been delayed somewhat, but it will be coming down the line. The strategic assessment identified the following and largest areas as threat to Norfolk, one being domestic abuse, the drug supply in county lines, and we are seeing there is a growing and emerging issue for areas and organisations such as modern slavery, cybercrime and fraud, antisocial behaviour, and that is feeding up from the districts and the communities, and also hate crime. And it's about making sure that we are succinct with our assumptions with that data and making sure that data is overlaying. If Nick Howard is on this Zoom call, Nick, you would be able to identify that at the CSP on the 20th of January, it was demonstrated using Norwich as an area of overlaying locality data and police data and other partnership data to show where those hotspots are correlating between the police and between the councils as well. So it's about that, how we go forward with that evidence base, ensuring that you can see and we can demonstrate there is a definite evidence need for it. Has anyone got any questions so far, or do you want me to continue? No, I'll take that silence as a consensus to continue. We keep referring to the evidence base for those four top priorities, so prevent serious violence, domestic abuse and county lines. And we also have already created the modern slavery network, partnership network, and that is headed up by the Assistant Director, Kate Dexter from Children's Services. To ensure that our CSP is reflecting the Home Office uplift priorities, we have made sure that our conclusions are the same as those. So the uplift priorities are tackling neighbourhood crime, domestic abuse, serious violence, including knife crime. Leah, can I get you to go to the next slide for me, please? Thank you. Sexual offences and criminal exploitation, which includes county lines and modern slavery. And there is a crossover between county lines and modern slavery, and our delivery groups at this moment in time are working together, co-production, to ensure that we are managing that appropriately. So if we have a look simplistically, Leah, if I could get you to go to the next slide, please, on the strategic themes. Thank you. The strategic themes here, we've in a simplistic, these are our set of proposals. And as I say, this was proposed on the 20th of January to the CSP. So we are under consultation period at the moment, and this is our consultation period with yourselves as well. It's about building resilient, cohesive communities. It's about tackling neighbourhood crime, reducing the threat of criminal exploitation and safeguarding communities from the harm of abuse and serious violence. Now, Nick Howard has identified that the first building resilience and cohesive communities, it sounds, it's quite reflective of a policing element, but we've taken that on board and we will work with those partners who feel that, and we will ensure those strategic themes meet the requirements of the partnership as well. So under those strategic themes, the priorities under serious violence will be the development of the public health approach to serious violence. This is a long-term piece of work. This is not a short piece of work, because serious violence stretches across all of those priorities. But we are aiming to build a task and finishing group to go forward to see what that scope is for Norfolk at a county and a locality level, and ensure we feed that back to the CSP. Domestic abuse and sexual violence, it is there. It is a priority for the county, and it's ensuring that we are responding to the need of all those that are affected. County lines, knife crime's got a question mark, because that is a question in consultation for a priority on there, and looking at the evidence base as well. Preventing terrorism, that is our duty. For the CSP, it is a duty, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. Criminal exploitation, we have modern slavery and county lines there as well. County lines is appearing twice. That is purposeful, that's not just a mistake, because it's about that interrelationship between those two key themed areas. In neighbourhood crime, we've got acquisitive crime, antisocial behaviour, hate crime, community tensions, and also fraud and scamming. I think it's important that we ensure those areas are important and highlighted for those who are affected as well. What I would say about knife crime, go back into the knife crime element with the question mark beside it. Research is telling us that the safety of young people on the streets, and we need to develop a response to that, and that response under that serious violence strategy and the public health approach to it. Any questions so far? And what we want to ensure that it's the efficacy of the CCSP, that public perception, ensuring that the public know that the CSP strategic themes and the priorities are evidence-based led as well. Leah, could I get you to go to the next slide, please?
Could I just have a comment there, please, Amanda?
Yes, please, please.
I listened to the Chief Constable yesterday, and it seemed to be that domestic violence is now escalating to such a bad level that really it's handicapping the police service as it is. I'm just wondering, you know, now it seems to be coming, you know, in Norfolk rather than the county lines and that lot. It's becoming the priority of the police service to go and try and sort out. I wonder, you know, what we're going to do really to, you know, assist the police service with the rest of the county and where all these resources are going to come from.
Okay, so the domestic abuse and sexual violence group has been a key theme and priority for the past 3 years. The domestic abuse and sexual violence group is a delivery group of the CSP. That group is represented by a multi-agency partnership, the police being one of those. We have within that partnership a domestic abuse dashboard where we are looking at key themes and trends and uplift on numbers, uplift on services, both victim, and we are developing perpetrator service uplift as well. So as a partnership, we are responding dynamically to those calls for service, and as the PCC have been linked into Home Office Monday to ensure that those services available for victims have the resources at hand that they can to respond dynamically, especially in this COVID situation. So we are responding dynamically. There has been an increase. I think it would be correct to say that Simon said 4% last night.
Yes, but it's increasing all the time.
Yes, domestic abuse is increasing all the time. And with the current situation with lockdown, we are monitoring that and keeping aware of what is happening through our partners. So again, we as a partnership can respond. The domestic abuse and sexual violence group has multiple subgroups that are part and parcel of that. So we have a communications subgroup where right at, since the domestic abuse and sexual violence board, as it was then, have been highlighting to victims to come forward and get support and help. And through COVID, we were very reactive and proactive to ensure that victims knew that there was help and support available for them and they didn't have to suffer in silence as well. So we've had a campaign recently, and we've also just launched the HERE campaign on the Norfolk County Council website. You'll be able to find that information. And that's about employers encouraging those to come forward and get assistance. So we are encouraging those to come forward and get assistance. As Simon Bailey said last night on the news article that he did, he is encouraging people to come forward and get assistance. Many people, through my work with domestic abuse, many people will choose to come forward when the time is right for them, when they feel safe, secure, or when they're at a crisis point. We will see a rise in domestic abuse because people have the confidence to come forward. They know that the services are there to support them and help them. So yes, we do have an increase.
Okay, and just, you know, realistically, if we look ahead, we're going to have at least another 5 or 6 months of this lockdown or the tailback from it. are we getting the resources from government to assist at a proper level, do you think?
I think the resources that we have had, we are working with our partner agencies across the county to ensure that they are spent effectively in the right places and an evidence-based approach. We have not only the communications subgroup, we have a perpetrator subgroup, we have a commissioning subgroup to ensure that all commission services are working together to ensure that those services that are being delivered are not duplicating each other and they are fit for purpose as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Amanda.
And thanks, Amanda. And Chairman, if I may, just for a moment, Broadland Council puts in around 30,000 a year to directly into domestic abuse services, which we're very proud of. And I sit on the DASVB, so the Domestic Violence Sexual Group Board. I also sit on the commissioning group as well. So very much what Amanda said, I can reiterate that we are working very closely with our partners on that, and Broadland Council has always been a strong advocate for domestic abuse support. Thank you, Chairman.
Amanda, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, please.
To change the subject, threats and abuse on social media, is that a part of your priorities?
Are we talking within a family context, or are we talking
No.
trolling?
Trolling, and I've noticed if somebody makes a comment on social media, a lot of people will get on the bandwagon and abuse that person. Is that something the police are looking into, or can you not do anything on social media?
I can take that back and ask the question. I wouldn't be able to answer that at this moment in time, so I could take that back to the partners and ask that question. I know that there are multiple within trolling within sexual offences, ex-partner trolling, that is an offence, and that can be taken through the Miscommunications Act, etc. So if anyone has had incidences of that, I would recommend that they talk to the police in relation to that. But as such, I wouldn't be able to advise whether there is a specific piece of work. That would have to be Norfolk Constabulary who would answer that, but I can take that back and ask for yourself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any further question?
Is that the end of the presentation?
No, I'm gonna speed up for you. Is that all right? I'm mindful I'm taking your time up. I will speed up for you. Okay, so we do have the leads on these delivery groups, but what we're also going to do is work with the localities, neighbourhood crime, to find out the district leadership boards who we should be linking in with from a community safety partnership, and establish a new community cohesion subgroup to include hate crime, and we'll establish a lead for that. If I could go on to the next slide. What we're doing at this moment in time is we are we're in consultation with our partners, so we're asking for their outcomes, priorities, delivery structure and strategic links as in part and parcel of the priorities that we've identified through this presentation. Leah, if we could go to the next slide. So that consultation process will be going out this afternoon to all partners of the CCSP, and it's about linking in with your district leads to ensure that that is identified clearly for yourselves. So we want to know what the outcomes. We've used domestic abuse and sexual violence as an example for this. So what does success look like? Reducing the level of harm, reducing the number of repeat incidents of domestic abuse, and improving the health and well-being of all affected by domestic abuse. What are those priorities? How are we going to manage that delivery structure? What are those key strategic links and partnerships that we must be cognizant of to ensure that we are linking up and we are not duplicating work? Duplicating resources is not a good use of resources. So this process will be happening, and we've got some actions on the next slide, Leah, which will identify those timeframes. So we're getting the feedback from the strategic leads, the organisation, key thematic areas and the district leads by the 10th of February. This is quite tight timeframes we are working to, but we are working with our partners to ensure we can meet them. The draft strategy for the CCSP will be ready for the beginning of March, mid-March, and the 14th there, as you can see. We will be at the CSP Scrutiny panel to outline that strategy. We will be linking in with the Chief Execs boards, the Norfolk Leaders Board, the Safeguarding Board engagement as well. And we will be having a public engagement consultation, and the final strategy for the CSP will be signed off by the 19th of April. If you could go to the next slide, this is, I promise you, this is the next slide, the last slide, Councillor. To ensure that we can do all of that, we have a team structure and a commitment from our CSP chair behind that. So we are utilising the resources from the Memorandum of Understanding with the Norfolk County Council to employ 2 community safety officers to work as those key thematic leads across the localities. And we have a communications officer so that we can lead and be responsive to those communication areas and priorities that are coming through, because we know that's been a key issue previously. So we want to make sure that we have got the correct resource on that, and also linking in with the current county lines coordinator and the modern slavery coordinator, which also sit under the Office of the Police and Crime Commission, and the Modern Slavery Coordinator is actually funded by the Office of the Police Crime Commission as well. So this CCSP team will actually allow us to do that work going forward. Any questions?
Councillor Marl, if I may ask. On the previous slide, you had the public consultation, and the date on that was sort of like March. What are the what's in place if we are, you know, still under lockdown rules? How will the public consultation be handled and administered?
We are looking at that at this moment in time, Councillor, to ensure that we reach as many individuals in as many different delivery methods as we can. As you know, COVID is making, we are looking at lots of dynamic methods for communication, but we will take that into account.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anybody? I'm just flicking through the screens and I can't see any offhand. Anybody else wish to comment? Yes, Nigel.
Thank you. Yes, I was just wondering, how do you go about public consultation? Because I must admit, whenever these public consultations come out for whatever, nobody ever contacts me or my neighbours. So where do you get your information from?
Our engagement strategy with the public consultation is in the process of happening, but I'm sure, Councillor, if we need to establish how people, as you say, link in. Not everyone has the internet, so it's about how we engage with those individuals, and also making sure that when we do engage with those individuals, we'll be able to report and evaluate who we have engaged with, how we have engaged in that delivery strategy as well.
Anybody else? I don't see any other hands up scrolling through the screen. So,
yes, please, Chair.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Sue.
Okay, thanks, Tony. I just wondered how the areas had been arrived at. So the community safety officer covering Kings Lynn and Broadland, North Norfolk and Great Yarmouth. That seems a very strange geographical area. So I just wondered how they'd been arrived at.
We've looking at the geographical areas, these were the areas where we've been working. However, is there another way that you would think that it should be looked at?
Sorry, I'm a councillor for Aylsham, so right in the centre of that. And yeah, I mean, North Norfolk for me is Broadland and North Norfolk, and it just struck me. It seems like a very strange, long, elongated area for one person to try to cover right the way across from Kings Lynn to Great Yarmouth.
Yeah, what I can assure you, Councillor, is the team will not be strictly sticking to those district leads. We will be omnicompetent across the area so that we have that resilience as well, because we don't want a single point of failure either. So we will have that resilience built across so that each of the officers know what is going on in their area. Each of the officers can build on best practice. But from that perspective, it was set up in that way, but we can take that away and have a look at that for you if you want.
And
thank you. Yeah,
if I may dive in there, it's just one of obviously the key aims is our Greater Norwich area. So you know that you can never divide anything up, and you can never divide anything north up well, because obviously with Norwich, South Norfolk and Broadland, there's some commonality around that kind of Norwich area. But absolutely, you've got the extremes of Diss and Aylsham. We need to make sure, as Councillor Catchpole, as we need to make sure they're in, and I think that kind of cross work will be really useful anyway.
Okay. Any other questions at all? No, right. Right, well, thanks, Amanda, for a very interesting presentation. And it's been very interesting and some very good questions. So thanks ever so much.
Thank you
very much. Thank you.
Right, now we do at long last have the chairman with us. Morning, Steve. So I'll hand over to you now. And we're on agenda item number 8, which is the apprenticeships and new schemes. I'm glad you've been able to join us for this one, because I know you've got some real thoughts on this. So I'm handing over to you now.
Thank you, Tony, and apologise, everyone. I've had a real hub problem, plus also I'm using Broadland's laptop here, and there's been some issues with that connectivity as well. Anyway, got it operating now. So I can see everybody at last, which makes this meeting a lot easier to chair. Thanks, Tony, as well. So yeah, page 8, apprenticeship new schemes. There's a report here from Emma, which is also, of course, been contributed to by the officers. Tig, I don't see Tig present, but I guess I'm not quite sure which officer is Paul. So Emma, you lead off, I guess. And
do you know, I'm going to be someone's assistant today. I'll leave you to determine whether glamorous or not. Mike is going to lead on this report. Unfortunately, Tig can't join us today, and I'll chip in here and there, but Mike will take you through the report.
Yeah. I thought you was it, Mike, because you're the only one I can see. Okie doke. Far away, Mike. Thanks.
The rare occasion, the beast before the beauty, I think. Thank you, Chairman. This one is an initial report. What we want to do is to bring back an update. I think it's really useful for ONS to see what's going on. There will be further reports on this as we develop and as we develop apprenticeships, but it's useful as a kind of marker in the sand about where we are at the moment. So looking at kind of where we are, we know, as in the report, youth unemployment is, and it's been in the news over the last couple of weeks, the concern around youth unemployment and the numbers that are increasing. We know that through the pandemic, we've seen that those entry-level jobs have tended to be knocked out. They're the easy ones to be knocked out. Apprenticeships, that type of issue, has caused young people not to be able to get into the market. And when we're looking at roughly between 18 and 25 when we talk about young people at the moment. We also know that job blocking, so there's a lot of people being taken out of work, or they're being furloughed, or they're leaving because they're worried that their job won't exist anymore. And what they tend to do, what we call job blocking, is they come back down into lower grade jobs, which would perhaps be traditionally taken up by young people. So that's an issue that's certainly nationally, but locally we'll want to focus on over the next few months and certainly years as we take that forward. There's a lot of issues, as you'll see in 3.5, in terms of supporting young people back into employment, as well as just the practical lack of jobs, which we know we're going to have. But how do you, that gap between employment and or education and employment, so whether that's at 16, 18, 21, whatever, how do we ensure that gap is supported so people can move into employment? But we know there's some traditional stuff which hasn't changed for years. So the lack of skills that young people, credentialism, which is basically a young person doesn't have that background to say, I can deliver this, because they're straight out of education. So how do we give employers the confidence to take on young people? Because they are more a risk, but they are also more of an opportunity. So how do we do that? We know that the rise in retirement age has caused issues, as well as some of those jobs being either kept on, staff being kept on, or they come down into part-time jobs, which is useful for employer, but then that may well knock out young people to enter into the market. Recruitment methods are very traditional still, and they're very traditional in the Broadland area and Norfolk. That isn't necessarily the best way now with young people learning social media at different platforms. What's been really interesting is through lockdown is that kind of change of recruitment methods has been really useful for businesses. They're now accepting much more, as we do, much more online recruitment, so interviews over Zoom, etc. So there's a potential opportunity there. Employment legislation is very difficult. As anyone who has run a business, employing a 16 to 18-year-old is particularly difficult with the legislation that brings, quite rightly, in terms of protecting our young people as they start in work. But that can help, but also not just at 16, but also before. We've seen a gradual lack of part-time kind of Saturday jobs go over the years as people really struggle with that kind of legislation to support that. And there's also a lack of vocational options and vocational pathways. And it's an interesting, we've seen over the last 15, 20 years, a rise in the push people up into university and to raise the average academic level. But actually that's fine, but there's also a huge push we still need in those vocational routes, those vocational pathways. I myself started off as an apprentice at 16 and found it hugely valuable. Earning money, earning and learning as you went, and by the time I was 22 I was a foreman, and because I had 6 years worth of experience, so that's a really valid way, but we have lost perhaps some of that, and how do we get that back as well? So there's a range of things that affect the way young people are supported. Just to bring in some of the actions that we are doing. I'll talk about the National Kickstart Programme. We've signed up as a gateway employer. The Kickstart Programme, to be fair, it's been in the news this week. It's getting there. It's struggled. We're still waiting for our approval, despite having signed up over 2 months ago. Not necessarily the DWP's fault per se. There's a huge amount of interest in this scheme, and for those of you who aren't aware, the Kickstart Programme effectively employs a 18 to 24-year-old for 6 months. The government will pay their full wage for 6 months, and they will also contribute to the employer to support that person. That comes with a tag of, this isn't just slave labour. You've got to give a quality work placement to a young person, and you've also got to give them some guidance on future careers path as well. And we've been able to utilise our invaluable learning around choices and Carabreck House to support that. So we're all geared up, we're all ready to go, and we're assured that that's within a matter of weeks now when we'll be signed up for that. But nationally, that's an opportunity that's working well. We've got around 35, 40 businesses who have signed up with us as well. So we can launch into an initial between 40 and 50 work placements. So it's a fantastic opportunity for our Broadland young people to sign up. So that's something, and we can, and I'll bring that back to Scrutiny when we know exactly where we are with that. Integrating employment. So we've had a really good qualitative discussion with DWP. We're taking out a full-time benefits officer from the line, matching it with a job coach from the DWP, because one of the barriers that we know is affected is about that information sharing and that general working together with a job centre. So by putting two humans together to build a relationship, that's, I think, a really invaluable way of trying to build that support. They've already between them identified that there's a number of providers. Clarion Housing, for example, provide actually an enormous amount of support for work and job skills. We're working with Adult Learning who have got courses that aren't being utilised. So by looking at the kind of all the different partners that we've got, we can work together better. So that's an emerging area of work which we're going to look to support and develop as we go as well. And really, certainly for the where we want to go with that is there's a kind of push and pull element for youth unemployment. They're far more, if we can get people into work, they are far less likely to cause us cost pressures on housing and our benefits, as well as other social elements, which we know that unemployment brings. But also, if we can get them into work, their life chances are so much more improved. But also then they're earning money, they're paying taxes, and that business is also developing and generating as well. So there's a key element for us to be able to support this work. Looking more internally, I'm going to hand over to Emma in terms of apprenticeships and what we're doing with HR.
Lovely, thanks, Mike. I was just about to say, I think Mike's covered it all, but I better say something now. You said I'm going to say something, hadn't I? So what we do, I think one of the things I know we need to bring back to you is a bit more on the apprenticeship levy and how we tap into that as an organisation. I mean, Mike's covered kind of how we've done things in the past, and also through Broadland Council training services. We've supported young people through a range of programmes there. I think, as Mike's also said, you know, the approach, not necessarily by us as councils, but historically has been the apprenticeship scheme has been more focused to the older generation, and probably at the expense of the younger generation. I think it's difficult for the younger generation. You come out of school, you need a job, but you need knowledge and experience to get a job. So if we can really capture that age group and give them the knowledge and experience that they need to then go forward, then I think that feels to me a really good thing to be doing. In terms of our internal approach to apprenticeship, we're currently looking at that. I think the two councils historically have had two different approaches to apprenticeships, neither right nor wrong, but I think it's a good opportunity for us to look at how we can really drive forward the apprenticeship scheme and really tap in to the apprenticeship levy in the most effective way, but obviously working alongside Mike and Tig with the work that they're doing on the wider remit. And we're also looking at our wider partners across Norfolk in terms of how can we provide a cohesive apprenticeship programme for people. So it may well be that we can join up with other public sectors and we can have someone on an apprentice scheme that works their way around different areas of the public sector. And we're trying to look at that and see if we can make that a broader experience for them, which kind of hopefully opens their eyes up to a broader market. So I think it's very much work in progress. Again, I would agree with Mike. I think bringing you an update in a couple of months' time when we've landed some of this and had the time to really pull some of that together, I think would be really useful for the committee. I'll hand back to you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Emma and Mike. I'm going to actually just come in terms of the whole premise, because it's originally started off on time and task. Just before I do, Caroline, you had your hand up, and then I'll come in.
Okay, I just wanted to thank Emma and Mike for the report, and I'm pleased with the way the council and the partners are working together to recruit apprentices. But I do agree with Emma. I think we maybe have lost sight with the original concerns that ONS had, namely the apprenticeship levy, how it is affecting young people, namely 18 to 25-year-olds accessing apprenticeships.
Okay, so yeah, perhaps if I can just recap on this, because if we talk, yeah, on page 17 where we've got our work program, you'll see in there the box where this relates back to from the time and task panel. Then we agreed to not proceed on time and task because COVID had hit, and then we also, Emma and Mike, as you remember, had the issue of the Kickstart scheme just being launched. Would that be affecting it, etc., etc.? So we've sort of held on around the time task, but the original time task was around concerns of the levy and the then economic team as well, which have given us some indications that they believe that the levy was affecting the take up of apprenticeships being provided by particularly small employers, that age group of 18 to 20, 24, 25. So that's where it started from. So the report is obviously looking at partnerships, what we can do as a council, and that work that's ongoing. Sorry, Mike, is very purposeful. You can see there's clearly more work to be done there in terms of what we can do and with partners. Coming back onto the original issue about the levy, we've still got to address that in this meeting because this is actually government policy. It's not just not affecting Broadland, it's affecting the whole country. And then the stats on page on 2.3, page 13, the 21% decrease when you go back to 2016 to 18, that's before COVID. So this was the issue that we was going to look at time and task, going right the way back, was let's have a look at the stats. Is there a real indication here on surveying local employers, etc., that the levy is actually too bureaucratic, and that's affecting the take up of apprenticeships? You know, over the years, Mike, and as you've said, you know, you as an apprentice, I remember going all the way back to YOP, the Youth Opportunity Scheme, and then all the others that followed, and being put in an apprenticeship with which wasn't fully a real apprenticeship at the time, and then changed my course. But yeah, so you know, we've had, doesn't matter what the government is, this isn't a political issue here. We've had schemes come in, trialled, and there's issues with them. The levy does seem to be one. So on the levy, in terms of government policy, there's very little that we can do to change that. However, what councils can do, of course, is actually have a view and feedback into central government, and that's valuable to government, because let's have that feedback in from councils and parties and employers boards. They don't really know. So I think at this stage, at this meeting, it's very difficult for us to actually come to a full conclusion around that. I'm picking up that what Emma's saying around, and yourself around, you know, you need to come back in terms of what we're doing around partnerships. But I'm just opening it up now to the committee to, well, ask questions, but perhaps focus back at the end on perhaps two parts of what we want to do around one, coming back on the levy, where are we in terms of government around that? And then also have a look at, you know, as you're saying, coming back on another report about what we can do for the future with our own partnerships and what's going on there. Just one other point on this. The real issue is with the small employers. I know the county tried to set up almost like a sort of consortium situation for local employers to get involved with, and it's failed. The county trying to do its best around that, because again, it's just too bureaucracy. The county's trying to, you know, outdo that bureaucracy by getting people together, employers together. Large employers like the NHS, of course, are putting on apprenticeships, and large manufacturers like Ford. But, you know, we're having more and more large companies going out the door, and smaller companies, which is the lifeblood now, was it 70% of the workforce, apprenticeships are not being taken up. So I'll open it back up now, people. So I've got Sue Catchpole, Ken Kelly. This is so great being able to see you. And that's all I've got at the moment. Sue and then Ken.
Thank you, Chair. I think one of the concerns that we had was that apprentices are beginning their apprenticeship and then losing the ability to continue with it after a year or after 2 years. So they don't gain the qualifications that they're setting up for in the first place. And that seems to have been quite high frequency occurrence, not just now in the pandemic, but before, but it's probably even greater now. So I'm wondering what support is there for youngsters who start an apprenticeship in full belief that that's all great, you know, my next few years sorted, I'll end up with these qualifications, but then after a particular period of time, the employer ceased that apprenticeship. And the other point was made in the report about the apprenticeship levy being used for more senior qualifications or more higher qualifications, and employers preferring to offer those to existing employees because they can, rather than for the historic use of apprenticeships, which is sort of at the entry level. So those 2 points I think are quite important.
Sure. I don't know, Mike, if you or Emma want to
well, I'll start. I think Emma had a hand up as well, but I mean, just in terms of the apprenticeship and the scheme, I mean, they did go down to either 12, 18, 24 months, and you know, there is a change. I mean, I was YTS, so I was just a few years behind Steve. Sorry, that is your age, but yeah, you know, a 3-year apprenticeship, which is perhaps you know, where we're kind of coming from here. The government legislation did change and bring that down significantly to 1-2 years. Whether that's a good thing, whether it's a bad thing, I don't know. You know, I think that the nature of the job, certainly from my experience, is just it took. I mean, I'm 47, so this is 30 years ago. the world has changed, and we need to change with it. But have those apprenticeships change for the bad and good? That's something that we do need to explore further. Emma, did you want to say anything? Or
yeah, I was just going to say, so from an internal perspective, from the one team approach, the apprenticeships that we offer are matched to the training or the qualification that they'll get. So if we're going to put someone through business admin level 3, the apprenticeship will match the time that it takes to get that qualification. And we have extended apprenticeships where sometimes it's taken a bit longer to get that over the line. We've extended the apprenticeship so that they can achieve that qualification. But I think you're right. I think the whole apprenticeship scheme needs a proper holistic look at. And I think in terms of the use of the levy, again, internally, as I've said, and that's why I think bringing a March update would be really timely, because we are absolutely looking at how we use that levy internally. So not only is it about looking at if we've got staff that, where we know we've got problems recruiting, we need to look at an apprenticeship approach to that, because we can get them skilled, get them in, and then as jobs come available, we're kind of training our own, and we're getting a really good platform for bringing them through. There is also, obviously, there is the ability for higher qualifications to be paid through the apprenticeship levy, but it should absolutely not be at the expense of getting our younger generation kind of geared up and ready for work.
Thank you. I've got Ken and then Dave King. I think I saw your hand up, did I, Dave? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to add myself to the list of apprentices. I was a Royal Air Force apprentice way before probably you were even born, Mike. So I know exactly the brilliance of the scheme, and also of what Broadland used to provide. Because when you look at it, one of our directors of place, Phil Courtier, and I both attended courses run by Broadland for Institute of Chartered Managers. So, so start at the bottom and work right up, so we know it works. My question to Mike and Emma is about Carrabrek House. Now, I know that in the years previously, we trained an amazing amount of brickies and electricians and that lot. And, it was a fantastic scheme. But my worry is looking at the bottom there, how we actually get these individuals, what help we can give for them to actually apply for apprenticeships and how they do it, and, interview skills and that lot. And, my view is I would like to see Carrabrek House used as some sort of means of actually training these people to get the basic skills to be able to go on to move in apprenticeships. And I'd like to hear your comments from that, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm working closely with TIG on a review of Carrabrek to see where we take that forward. I'm very keen on the integrated employment side. It's very much, I certainly resonate with what you're saying about, it's not just about formal qualifications, it's the ability to either change careers or get the confidence in terms of CVs, applications, interview techniques. What certainly some of the initial discussions we're having with people who have applied for integrated employment is, they've been working in the sector for a number of years, and actually they've got loads of transferable skills, but they just haven't got the idea about how to transfer those skills into new employment. They've worked in, for example, in the hospitality industry for a number of years, didn't really know any different. So that's certainly one element about how we use Carrabrek and that work to try and help support people. But we're also, which we know, careers advice in schools has deteriorated over a number of years. So we're getting young people who are leaving school at 16, 18 or 21, really without any real idea about what they want to do. And how do we use Broadland Council and our past ethos about helping support people to navigate, which is really a complicated system, to find out, what skills they need, where do they want to be in life, and then how do they get there. I think that's something we're very keen, Tig and I, are exploring that.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thanks. So Dave, and then Sue Holland's indication wants to come in. Just quickly on Carrabrek, Mike, as you know, going back under the old economic team, there was a downward trend in terms of the apprenticeship and then using through with the funding for the employers. Again, that was kind of just leading into the levy situation, and it's all linked up with you know, in terms of that. Thanks, Dave, and then Sue H.
Thank you very much. My questions are on the Kickstart program. I looked at this. I think it was back in October, November when it was first announced, and when I actually looked at it, it actually said that the only way you can actually do it yourself is if you've got 50 vacancies. If not, you have to find a facilitator. I did speak to I spoke to Tig about it, and obviously things have moved forward. I'm really grateful to actually see. Have those figures of 50 reduced? Because obviously I can see on the report that we have in front of us that 20 businesses and 24 placements have come forward. Is that going to be sufficient? And secondly, is this only going to be for the Broadland and South Norfolk area, or would you potentially be acting as a facilitator in the city? Because for my own personal business, I need a facilitator, and Norwich City Council haven't been very forthcoming. So they're my two questions. And what I would also like to know is how the marketing is going to be done when it comes to this Kickstart program, to making sure that businesses in our areas can access it for the 6-month placements that they can offer. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Chairman and Councillor King. So Kickstart has now gone to down to 30. And so that's the 24 businesses. We've got 13 placements ourselves. So internally, so that boosts us up to past the 30. So then that's a really good, because 50 seem to be high. So we will facilitate for South Norfolk and Broadland. We're not that precious about facilitating around the city either. So, you know, it could well be there's also Norfolk County Council are a gateway employer. North Norfolk are doing it. The Chamber of Commerce is also doing it. So there's plenty of people around. So, you know, if you want to give me a shout about your business and we do that, that's fine. And then what we're going to do, we've gone out to South Norfolk and Broadland businesses, our economic development team, to promote it. It's chicken and egg. Once we've got the agreement signed and we know we're going, because the businesses can't be doing with faffing. So once we've got it, there'll be a huge push out to all our businesses in South Norfolk and Broadland, but also to young people as well. Young people have to physically register with the job centre because they go through that route, but that's fine. But we need to tell them. And I'm working with Emily at the moment, our marketing manager, just about how do we market to businesses, but how do we also market those practical applications to the businesses and to young people. And there's a range of stuff. We've generally got kind of sort of admin, business support type roles, but we've also got a comms and marketing. I've got one for housing. And we've got the depots, both depots at Broadland and South Norfolk are interested. And businesses have come back with a range of manufacturing type jobs, fairly creative jobs. So actually, I think there's a good mix there that we can help support young people with.
I've personally got a marketing role and basically a post room role. But what I can actually offer is, because there's two distinct roles, they could actually do both because of the way that I think it's 25 hours a week. There is actually a facility actually doing cross training for both areas, so to develop both sets of skills. And Helston Parish Council has actually been speaking to Norfolk about the potential of taking on some ground staff. So that's something I do want to touch base with you, because obviously I think it would be much better for the parishes in the area if they can facilitate it to actually go through the district authority, because again that will help to really say, right, we can do more. And I do believe there's a little pot of money for every placement that a facilitator places. So I would actually much rather that money did go into Broadland or South Norfolk rather than into county, in all honesty.
So we get well, I wouldn't disagree with you, Councillor King, but yeah, we get for each placement there's £1,500. And then we get £300 to manage the relationship. So that's good. So it might as well come to us. We're using Choices and Carabrac actually, and what we've done to businesses, rather than to encourage really small businesses to apply, is we will do that kind of CV application times writing if you want to, and then we'll do that. I mean, we've done it for under £200. Norfolk County Council are charging nearly 3 times that. But so yeah, so I think actually bring it down, and because we're a district, we're a local level, we really understand the local area as well, and I think that'll help with transport links and issues as well.
Thanks. Right. I've also picked up Grant as Sue, and then Grant, Sue H.
Hello, yes, thank you for the report. I have to say, one of the things that, as an ex-teacher, one of the things that really concerns me is young people coming out of schools and not being in employment or having any sort of prospects. What I'm interested in is how, forgive me if I've missed it, but how many people such as what I would call the trades, like electricians and plumbing and building and those sorts of areas, apprentices, that kind of thing, are they participating in these schemes or not? Because I know a lot of them would be what I would describe as very small one-man bands sometimes, but they would be equally valid as employers and training somebody up. And I just wondered if that comes under the Kickstart or Can Do, or what uptake you might have from that. My other comment was simply about the levy and the fact that so many older people were taking up or being used, getting qualifications that way. And it seems to me that didn't necessarily fit what I would have considered an apprenticeship to be, but that may just be my old-fashioned view. So I don't know if you can comment on the first of those. Thank you.
Yeah, so certainly in Council Holland, I think in terms of trades, it's been fair that it's been disappointing for the first tranche that we haven't had any. So that's something that we are looking at to see whether we encourage, because they are completely within the scheme. I mean, actually, a lot of
Linda, Frank's at the door. Frank's at the door.
I'll take that as not a comment about apprentices. I mean, the practical trades and the building trades have actually been very, very good with the apprentices, and we know anecdotally with Broadland, because they see that as a really recognised route, and actually building construction, unless you want to go into architecture and that, like, you know, that type of stuff, it's actually a really valid route to get someone on site when they're young. So they've been good anyway, but certainly that's something we'll be looking. And I think I'm certainly like you, Councillor Holland, in terms of perhaps a slightly old-fashioned view, but yes, young people are really important, they're key. How do we support, I mean, in Broadland, for example, between 30 and 50 is a key group as well. That can be normally parents who come out, normally mum who comes out of work and then goes back in and wants to retrain. That seems a fairly valid route for an apprenticeships. We also see a lot of manual workers getting towards 50 and plus who can't do the job anymore. So actually an apprenticeship, you know, so I think probably some of our thinking needs to, you know, reflect modern society, but absolutely is apprenticeship still predominantly for a young person? Probably yes, but I think that's something we need to explore. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think where we are on this, of course, it's the whole gambit of people, isn't it? So we've got 18 to 24 that it seems the levy has caused a problem for an inhibitor. We've got the stats that have fallen off. And then we've got the adult apprenticeships, which are absolutely key and necessary, because if you go back not that too far, people are actually barred from that further education in terms of upskilling, and that's no good either. So you need both schemes sort of working away. The problem, as I'm seeing it at the moment, is the real issue is with the 18 to 24s. That's where I'm seeing the issue at the moment in terms of the stats, and the stats that aren't in this report. There are stats here, but there are even more, as you know, Mike, around this, quite detailed stats, and they're pretty scary actually. Looking forward over the next few years, it's going to be a real tail off in terms of skill shortages, and also, you know, there's a knock-on effect in terms of perhaps Europe around that as well. Don't know, but you know, there's a storm waiting to come here for sure. It's not a very pleasant one around the lack of skills. Grant, you are next, Grant. Hello.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Yes, Mike did in his presentation make comment about Kickstart being in the news recently. And I was just wondering whether this was the same thing. I got an email from East Coast College. I think it's in Lowestoft or Yarmouth, not sure. So in their message, they said, never has there been a better time to recruit an apprentice. For every new apprentice you hire between 1st of August 2020 and 31st of January 2021, you will receive up to £3,000 as part of the government's plan to support employers during economic recovery. Is this the kickstart? Because it talks about £3,000 for 16 to 18-year-olds, £2,000 for 19 to 24-year-olds, and £1,500 for a 25 plus year old. And that was the first question, whether that's the kickstart, I don't know. First question is, has that scheme as an encouragement to get young people into employment been extended beyond the 31st of January? Has that scheme been scrapped or replaced by another scheme? And if this is something that's coming from the colleges, what are we as a council doing to promote this, working with employers and also working with these colleges that offer these the training for the apprenticeships? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noden. I mean, that's a slightly different scheme to Kickstart. That doesn't that doesn't tally with the Kickstart money. There's a range of apprenticeships, and I think that's certainly something that we need to look at and explore. Certainly, that we know that most colleges have tapped into apprenticeships as a way of drawing down funding. So most colleges will now actively promote apprenticeships, and we need to understand our relationship, which is what Emma was saying, is just looking about how do we work that, and what's our offer compared to how do we work with partners. So that's certainly something we want to explore. Yes.
Okie dokie. I'm just checking, Martin. Have you got your hand up, Martin? I've got an electronic hand up on your screen for some reason.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Martin. Far away.
Just a couple of things. Obviously, where we're talking around the age, and we're talking about 16-year-olds, and again, we've talked. A lot of people have said about when they were on the original schemes, and trying to look at the age. So the engagement needs to be like a couple of years before that. So I would suggest that we need to start being in the schools and talking to the schools at about 14. And like that's somewhere around, sometimes the choices are looking at where they're going into the vocational courses rather than the academic courses. And the other thing was engagement with other bodies, because and how the marketing's done, because there's a lot of people out there who are probably already doing some stuff around this. So people like the Federation of Small Business and the Norfolk Chamber of Commerce, and again, they would cover our area for doing it. So I wonder what engagement had been had with any of those bodies.
Certainly, we've engaged well with our external providers and City College and other and trade, business, etc. So and we need to do a lot more of that. I think we've probably lost some of that around the apprenticeship route. I think is the honest answer, Councillor Laurel. So we need, in terms of school, Broadland were going into every school. Obviously, that's in lockdown. What I'm in the process of doing, the reality is that's probably going to be September, by the time we can get back into schools with COVID. But certainly that looking at that kind of careers advice, how can we help support not just careers advice into local government, but also into general employment. I'm not convinced as well as it should be. It is now a requirement for schools to do that, but to be honest, schools have got a huge amount of other requirements as well. So how do we help support our schools to provide really good quality careers advice? When you look at models and Australia, I was looking at a few weeks ago, it's just, well, actually they start their careers advice at 10 or 11 years old. And, just that basic kind of where do you want to be when you're older, bringing up to then more of a qualitative conversation when it comes to options, to then looking at 16, how do we stop people just bouncing into something because they haven't really thought about it, and it's certainly a really of an interest I think we should be working on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also, if we could have something where when they come out, I mean, I think Sue Catchpole touched on this earlier, where schemes suddenly stop and then they suddenly find they're on a course, they've got nowhere to go. But if we could have something where it says, right, okay, if you engage on a scheme, it is for a period of time, it's 3 years, say, or 2 years, and you get that no matter what, because, it breeds that thing of, okay, well, I started something, I can't finish it. I started something, I can't finish. And then the people go, well, why should I bother?
And it's, recognising now, I mean, when I was 16, say 31 years ago, I mean, the average career was about, I think, 1.2 or something. That now average career is about 3.8. So, it is expected now that people will change careers. That company, that job for life, that's long gone, and we know that now. So that careers advice is, we need to reflect on that, and how do we offer that kind of, which sort of sector do you want to go in, rather do you want to be a policeman or a firefighter, or I think there's lots of opportunities to rethink how we do this.
Okie dokie. I've got Sue H. Sue C, did you indicate as well? Okay, Sue, you fire away, and then Sue H, and then I think we've had a really good debate about this, and I'll wind it up. I think we're probably all about there now. So Sue C, you
yeah, I think there's a couple of things. The first is just to say that this ceasing of the apprenticeship isn't by choice of the young person; it's by the funding. For some reason, the employer loses the funding or decides they're not going to continue with that. So I think we were talking at cross purposes there. But also, could you just reiterate for me what the objectives are within this area in Broadland, and South Norfolk, sorry. So what is it that we as a council, or two councils, are trying to achieve? Because I think this is a huge area, and we can't do everything. We can't be everything to everyone. So what are our key priorities, please?
I mean, Gemma, do you want to start?
Well, I think this is the reason why we need to come back to you, Sue, because I think prior to us going into COVID, we were really starting to focus on what do we mean by having apprentices, what's our approach, what's our role, and how are we going to really make this work. Unfortunately, it's been one of those things that we've just not been able to get the traction on because of other competing demands. Plus, we need to involve our partners with it a lot more as well, so that we can take a bit more of a holistic role and actually really, as you say, provide real clarity on what our role is. And that's why I'm hoping coming back in March, we can then absolutely start to shape that and start to really kind of say what it is that we want to achieve with this. Mike, did you want to add anything?
Well, only that I was going to say the same. I mean, I've had initial discussion with Tig and Phil, and it's so broad how we look at where we were and compared to where we want to be, I think, and looking at certainly from my point of view in terms of vulnerability in housing, we're either going to have a huge amount of cost pressure on people in housing because they're skipped out of work. Not their own fault, but furloughed, that company's gone under, they now can't afford their rent. So there's a huge cost pressure. So there must be surely a huge cost incentive for us to really look at this area to ensure that how can we stimulate business, but how can we move people back into employment? I mean, and what Tig will come at it from an angle of, well, you need to stimulate your business and get your business going, because then they pay business rates, and they're both as equally as valid as each other. So we need to have a proper look and then bring that back to ONS.
Thank you, Mike. Sue H.
Yeah, I just two things really. One was progression. I think I've heard about the levy talking about lasting for the duration of a course, for example. And what I'm concerned about as well is that you could start a course that ran for 2 years and finished, but that doesn't give you everything you need to progress in that career. So I think there's I'm asking really, does that allow you to go on from one course to the next? That was one question. And the other one is about this issue of prudentialism, because that's been around for donkey's years, hasn't it? And it's exacerbated perhaps by various governments bringing in better access to universities. So everybody kind of felt that, you know, everybody had to have a degree to change a toilet roll or something. You know, there's a misperception, I think, about people's abilities related to their qualifications. And I don't know how you get over that, because that's been around for years, but that seems to me to tie into some of this stuff as well. When people finish one career and want to move into something else, or come back from having children or whatever that might be, it doesn't mean that their skills they already have aren't valid for another career. So it's perception in employers, I think, perhaps needs to be looked at as well sometimes. So I'm not sure how the levy works, but I thought I sort of wondered if that was part of what we were going to do as time and task, but I don't know. Perhaps somebody could answer that for me as well. Thank you.
Yeah, it's probably the appropriate time for me to actually come in just one up. Yeah, because the original issue with the levy was, and the information coming back from the excuse me, the old economic team as it was, and then leading into Carrabrack situation, which was the other issue which was touched on earlier on, was that the levy, because of the way it was put together, the changes with it, the bureaucracy around it, was having a detrimental effect on the 1824 and taking up apprenticeships, you know, and that could be the different, you know, there are different years, isn't there, on apprenticeships, a year, 2 years, etc. Doesn't matter whatever that form was, but there was definitely a tail off because of it. And the stats over that period of time before COVID are bearing that out. You go back to the stats and they are bearing out. So when we go back to that when we go back to that ONS meeting, that was actually, I believe, the first ONS meeting. Yes, I think it was the first ONS meeting we had after the election, the council election. It was down the Trafford room where this was first raised. And I think it was the first meeting you attended, Emma, with us as well, actually. So that's quite some time ago now. And the evidence has actually been there. So Time and Task was going to look at, one, is there evidence to that? All time's moved on, and then we had a quite a sizable gap before COVID, and all the evidence, and you see the stats here in 2.2 as well. There is a problem with the levy scheme. There is, just like there's been a problem with other schemes that the government's had that have had a detrimental effect on take-up for whatever reason. We did have employers involved in picking up on Sue Catchpole's point here. We've always had a situation where you had some employers then, through lack of funding, going out of business, whatever, would pull out. We've also had the other issue, which is a constant issue, where you have, in the old stats, I think up to the levy being brought in, there was about a 5% withdrawal from youth on apprenticeships. I think that was the stat then, if I remember correctly. So there's always been those issues. But the fundamental issue here was the levy was actually having an effect on lack of take-up now, and it's because the employers were finding it so bureaucratic, so complicated, and it's a problem, particularly for small employers. If you're a large employer, it's a different kettle of fish. But most people in employment now are in small employers, and you've got one-man, two-man businesses. I'm aware of 2 electricians. I'm aware of a plumber that want to actually take on an apprentice with them, and they've looked at that levy and they've gone, "You've got to be joking, haven't you?" It's no longer what it was, and that's a shame. So just sort of wind this up, and the conclusions, and also Emma's feedback into this as well about the future, and coming back to a report in March. If we turn to the recommendation, page 16, committee is asked to note the report and support apprenticeships for young and support for apprenticeships for young people. I think if we reflect on the conversation, we've had a debate and the officers and Emma's input as well around March, we could actually change our resolve there into 2 points. I'm going to propose, in line with the conversation we've had. First point would be that in March we come back with perhaps some more stats as well around the levy. So we're looking for a further report on the levy in terms of that time and task panel. Then we can refer to that back when we get onto work programme in a little while. That will deal with that. So we we asked a report to come back on the levy specifically. Now, government policy has affected the take-up of apprenticeships under the levy scheme. And if you could perhaps just be noting those words down, James. And then the second bullet point to that was that we welcome this report. We look forward to a further update around partnerships and how the council will progress the matter in the future in March. So James, are you happy just to sort of try to read that back?
I think he's writing it down, Chairman.
Yeah, I just.
Sorry, Chairman.
Thank you. No, much appreciated, James. I know you need to write it.
That the committee note the report and in March receive a report setting out some statistics relating to the levy specifically and the take up it has had on the effect of the take up it has had on apprenticeships.
Yeah, and government and the effects that government policy within the levy has had.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
the second point.
And the second point is to welcome the report and look forward to a report detailing more information on partnerships in March. Partnership working.
And the overall approach for our council, which the officers will come back with. Is that okay, Emma? Brilliant. Okay. So I'm proposing that. Is there a seconder? Yeah, so I've got several. So we'll take a pick there, James.
Yeah. Well, Councillor Kelly's in the middle, so I spotted him first. Okie
dokie. Okay. So yes, I'll put that to the votes. Can you all please show of hands?
That looks to be unanimous, Chairman.
Yes. And we'll just check. Anyone against? No. Any abstentions? No. So unanimous. Thank you, James. We did have to do a roll call, Tony. Right. Thanks, Emma, and thanks, Mike. Very good discussion. I thought actually very good. Thanks very much. Right. Next item is our work programme. Excuse me. To page 17. So this is an update on the work programme, where we are and where we're going. And on the first item, you'll see the new apprenticeship scheme. So you've got the text there in the box about post-bandity and time and task panel. So now over on the final box on where we're going, comments, Sue White and James, we can now update that with today's meeting. Can mention the levy in there in particular as well, so that'd be great. Coming back to another RNS meeting. All happy with that? Yes, in actual fact, I've just been. Yes, because I missed the declarations this morning. But are you okay with this governance? Whatever, I can just say I've got no declarations.
Yeah. To be honest, Chairman, I did think of that halfway through the last item, but thought as it was the final item, it was probably yes, we can respectively.
Yeah, we covered it. Thank you.
We'll note that. Yeah.
Right. So, are we all happy with that on the apprenticeship new scheme? If so, I'll move on to early intervention, community safety. We've just had an update on this, haven't we?
Yeah. Would you like me to go through the work programme, Chairman?
Yes. Well, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I have got some other updates to give along the way.
Yeah. So if I name each box, and then if you've got an update, you can come in then, Sue.
Yep. Sure.
So On the early intervention community safety, clearly we've had an update today, so the box can be adjusted for that. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the reason the first two items are highlighted, they're what we're covering today. So it's just to give members an idea of what was on the work programme, and then obviously they would normally then be deleted, but we'll keep the apprenticeships and update the comments box and add it to the March meeting.
Okay, so the early intervention and community safety, will we be having another overview on this at some point? Or
would you like me to come into that, Chair?
thank you, Amanda. Yes.
Yeah, what I would like to say is we're going to, for our community engagement, we'd like to rely on yourselves to get that message as far as we can into the community as well. But if you would like me to come back and give you an update on the final strategy, I'm more than welcome to. Yeah, that'd be wonderful. So Sue, we can put that in there as where we are today. Thank you. We will agree with that, don't we? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Right, so next item is a committee annual report. This is due to be finalised for the May meeting, so we need to actually have had this done by March, Sue, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, it was planned that we would bring it to the March meeting just for members to comment and to approve it.
Okay, so I'll do my usual around this, around the forward, etc. And then once we've done that, bring it to the March meeting, so we can pop that in there, can't we? March meeting. Provision of leisure principles. Yeah, I don't know if you want to say something on this, Sue, because I know there's a report going to Cabinet. We had previously talked about Mike coming forward in advance of the process for Cabinet and us overviewing as a good overview and scrutiny input, so that it's helping possibly to form that report that goes through to ONS and then the Cabinet. I don't know if you recall that. Is Mike still here?
Yeah, Chairman.
Yes.
That's why I've or Sue and I have put it in for. It's due to go to Cabinet in May, so we're bringing it in early to ONS, and then that will help inform the discussion about and then where we take it. Obviously, then go to Cabinet in May. So yes, that's all in track. And Sue, I'm sure Richard would really love to write the report, but that's probably Kerry, so it's the communities manager rather than housing and wellbeing.
Okay, I'll update that.
Okay, so on that last box, then it's got presentation. So thinking that through, Mike, so you've got plenty of time to adjust it and then come back through the process for May. Would you be looking to bring that to the ONS in March?
Yeah, so I'm going to bring it, Chairman, into March. Have initial. We can discuss about the kind of principles where we're going, and then that'll obviously come back into an ONS the week before Cabinet as well. Brilliant, wonderful. I think that's a good ONS initiative there, and with yourself, Mike and Sue as well. It's what we should be doing. Thanks very much. Next page.
Okay, I do have an update for this one, Chairman, that I've received this morning, so it's new to us all. Okay, so this is the bridge maintenance reserves that members will recall we discussed at the last meeting, and it was put forward as an item. I've just heard from Phil Courtier this morning, who has told me that a few weeks ago they've commissioned a company to survey all our bridges, and they're expecting a report back from them in April. So Phil was suggesting that perhaps March would be the wrong time to have this, and we should maybe put this forward for the next meeting, which I understand, although the programme of meetings hasn't yet been agreed, I think the next meeting will probably be in June.
That would make agreement with that. That would make sense with the survey. Do we all agree with that? Yes. It's obvious, really. Thanks.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll change that then. Okay.
Housing allocation policy, possibly excuse me, possibly review. possible review of policy following its implementation in November. Has it been implemented?
So it's going to be implemented on April the 1st, Chairman. So what we're looking at doing that first 6 months, I think it'd be really useful as a kind of, I mean, it's still quite early, but what it'll do, I think, is a useful discussion document just to see how it's going, which will then inform future discussions anyway, because it may well need a tweak. We'll give it a year, but actually a 6 month review, I think would be quite timely for an ONS again, same as a leisure principles, Chairman.
That'd be brilliant, Mike. Yeah, so to be looking there for April, you think?
Well, we'll bring it in around October, November time.
Oh, yeah.
Or then to see whether we need to change it for the next calendar year.
Thank you. Brilliant. Okay. Staff turnover. Yeah, we're due for a reconvening of our meeting. I don't know, Emma, if you've got an update on when you think that's likely.
Yeah, apologies, Chair. My calendar is a bit of a nightmare at the moment to try and pull this together for you.
Okay.
So if we could get some dates in, I want to bring you an update that's worth your time. So can we offline get some dates agreed for that? It will probably be, being realistic, it's probably going to be a month before I can kind of get together on that, but I'll link in with you, Steve, if that's okay.
Okay. Okay, so we're tight after the meeting, peeps. Councillors, and just try to get a date sorted out. Thank you. Yeah, and the next item, future topics of scrutiny, to invite town parish councils to submit topics for future consideration. And then we've also got the email, which did get sent out. I think you all saw that, to town and parish councils from myself, copying in Sue White as well. We've also looking at the article to go in spring, which is, sort of promoting ONS and people's involvement again, letting people know what ONS is. On the letter that's gone out, we have had a parish council that has written in asking us to review a topic. So Sue's got that, and I think, Sue, if you could just screen share so that the committee can look at it and see if we can agree to put this on our work programme.
There we go. Can you see that?
Can everyone see? So this is just a topic: production of guidance document on the process for when town and parish councils should get involved with developers and the planning authority to ensure they have an opportunity to participate in discussions about allocation of public open spaces. There's been issues around this before, and it does seem to be some confusion. But I think the thing that this actually does fit our criteria. We could discuss this, and that would, of course, involve the officers as necessary. For instance, we would be asking, is there a guidance document in place? Why isn't there? Do we need to be doing it? And through that examination, we may end up with a good bit of scrutiny out of this. If when we go through it with the officers, it may well be, right, we've now fully examined that, and we go back to the parish council and say, well, in actual fact, this is where it's at, and explain that to the parish council. So I would certainly recommend, it fits with our criteria, we do put this on our work programme, and then we can schedule a meeting date in the future, and send an email back to the parish council, thank them for their request, and saying we will put on our work programme and deal with it in due course. So led from the community, bit of scrutiny. So I would certainly recommend it to you, committee. Could we agree that? Got the gallery off now. We all happy to include that?
I'm happy to second it, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, all agree?
Yeah, could I make a comment on there, Chairman? I have to say that I quite agree with what's been proposed here. Taverham area, for where we were, of which we've got 4 councillors there, has a huge development going ahead with Marriott's Park. And, it's been from us for councillors and also parish, we've coming in from both ends, and I have to say, you know, a bit of guidance and how we would implement this would have been a great assistance for us. So I heartily recommend this.
Thank you again. Okie dokie. So, was there anybody that was opposed to that? Just we've got clarity for the record. No abstentions. So unanimous, James. Yes. Thank you. Next item. Hello, I've just been called. Somebody call me. Grant.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just before you go on to the next item, I've been in quite a few of the parish council meetings where this letter from Overview and Scrutiny has been raised. And I've actually been very disappointed in the responses. The members don't seem to be really interested in thinking about it or giving it any serious consideration. So it was a bit disappointing. But what I was just wondering was that we had a recent meeting of town and parish councils, and I know Mike Persas was in attendance at that meeting, and so was Emma. And I was just wondering whether there were any topics or questions that were raised by members of parish council, town and parish councils during that meeting that could be considered for inclusion in Overview and Scrutiny's topics of future consideration.
Chair, do you want me to respond?
Yes, okay.
I'm trying to remember. That was Friday, and a lot's happened since Friday. I will go back because I'll go back to Erica, who was making notes of the meeting, and see what came through there. But from memory, a lot of the Q&A was dealt with in the session. There was a lot around the GNLP that instigated quite a bit of discussion. Grant, I know you're in on the session, so if your memory serves better than mine, then shout. But I will take that away, and I'll ask Erica if there was anything that came through from that meeting.
Yeah, I didn't intend. I didn't attend in the end because Jamie did it for me. So, but yeah, but we'll certainly take that away.
Okay, Grant. Thank you, Grant. Okay, so move on to the next one. Yes, right. Broadland mobile phone coverage. Sue, have you got a?
Yeah, I have got an update on this. As members will recall, Joe Coppleston was expecting an update from Better Broadband for Norfolk, and we were waiting for Openreach to detail all the properties who didn't have connectivity in the area. We were expecting, as you can see in the comments box, we were expecting this data in January. So I was hoping that we'd have some kind of update, but having checked with Jo, she is waiting still from the information from Openreach, and she's got a meeting booked with Karen O'Kane on the 10th of February. So she's hoping after that she'll have some more information for us. So it may be that you want to, depending on what that information is, we might want Jo to come, members might want Jo to come to the next meeting maybe, or we may be looking to have some kind of a joint meeting with the Environmental Excellence Panel, but it really depends on what that update is.
Okie dokie. So really what you're saying, Sue, is a suggestion that we could do either, depending upon what the update is. I think it's how we as a committee are aware of that update, and then how we make a decision around whether we really want a joint presentation or whether we want a separate one in between now and our next meeting, or unless we get the information. When's our next meeting? Is it it's 3 weeks, is it? The next ONS?
The next ONS is 30th of March.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to think how we would come to a conclusion outside of our meeting.
Can I make a suggestion, Chair?
Yes, fire away, Emma.
Because Councillor Copleston has obviously said to Sue that she'll let her know how that progresses. And I think if we bring you as chairman into the loop on that discussion outside of the meeting, then depending on the update, we can then determine the best course of action for that, depending, as Sue says, what the update is.
Okay, would the committee be happy with that? Yes. I'm not really seeing any dissent. Okay, fireworks. Right, okay, brilliant suggestion, Emma. Okie dokie. That would process it. Okie doke. So next item, water supply management, climate change. Again, Sue, I guess Emma or Emma, you want to...
I have got a little update on this. I actually sent it to you, Steve, just before the meeting, because I've only just received it, but you've obviously had broadband problems,
yes, problems.
So you won't have read it. So basically, yes, I've asked Councillor Copplestone for updates on this. As you'll recall, we were going to receive updates as Joe Copplestone's the representative on Water Resources East. I have actually just been sent a couple of updates. They weren't in time to make the agenda for this meeting, but I'm aware, obviously, if we don't discuss them until the end of March, they'll no longer be updates, so they'll be old news. So I was going to suggest that I perhaps forward them to members. They're just a couple of updates. Let me just see, hold on one second. There was the update, a short report from Joe Copplestone for the Broads IDB meeting. That's just a single sheet. And there's also been an announcement of a strategic partnership with the Nature I can't say it. Conservancy. Anglia Water and Norfolk County Council to form a Norfolk Sustainable Water Strategy. So we've also got a document detailing that as well. So I was going to just suggest, Chairman, that I forwarded those to members after the meeting, if you're in agreement with that.
Yes, I've seen it now.
Can I make a comment on that? Can I just
fire away, Ken?
Chairman? Joe's asked me to be her substitute for that. So any information of where she isn't available to go to the meetings, I shall take her place and bring reports forward with that.
Right, okie dokie. Is that in your capacity as a chair, Ken, as well?
No, actually, it's capacity because I sit on the Broads and the Norfolk Rivers IDBs. We get a lot of information from that. So the representation comes from there, and that's why Joe was selected for Water Resources East. So I shall be her substitute because of that.
I also believe you're now the chairman of the Environmental Excellence Panel as well, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
That was what I meant, Ken. Was it due to you being the chairman or not? Right,
yeah.
okay.
No, specifically from the water boards.
Mm-hmm.
Okie dokie. All right, thank you. Right, so happy to move on to the next item. That's we're on page 19. We are on page 19, aren't we? Just clear it.
Yeah, on page 19.
Yes. Council Partnership Register. Right, yeah, on hold due to COVID. I think committee, it's exactly where it is, isn't it? It's on hold from COVID. Any disagreements with that? Obviously, COVID's there. Okay, so we'll leave that on in abeyance at the moment. Sue.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got the Times panel review. So as we said, Emma, you're going to come back to us on some dates.
Yes, will do.
Workshop preparing to meet cabinet, discuss budget. Yes, October 21. Brilliant. It's in there, October 21. Wonderbar. The other thing, just sort of take a little bit of a limit here because we're just about to, I think we're finished now, is also, so the other discussions and with Emma have had as well about the training. As you know, committee is still due some training, particularly around the issue of scrutiny question. I know we've been doing this for a long time now. However, we never actually had the training for it. And you know, these tools around funneling, which doesn't occur in any other committee, and chair certainly wouldn't let it happen on any other committee. So it's a real understanding process around that. And some training, of course, under COVID, you'd normally do this in exercises in a room, around tables. It's quite fun as well. We can't do that. So just to say that in discussions with Sue and Emma, we're trying to see if there's some way we could do the training under COVID with the training supplier. Difficult call, but we are trying to look at that because it would be good if we could get some training in. This COVID situation could go on for a long time, for all we know. So you're happy with that if we can get that sorted out to do some training via Zoom? Not great, but see what we can do, yeah. Okie dokie. So I don't know how we want to just stick that on the end of the minute that we're looking at it, but that's possible, James.
I will indeed.
Thank you. Okie dokie. Anything else, officers, we've missed on this or we need to do? I don't believe so. No. Okie dokie. Well, I didn't take a tea break today because I thought we could finish in time, and it's probably worth.
Chair, sorry, Councillor Shaw's got his hand raised.
Nigel, I'm just getting to that point where the sun's in my eyes. go ahead, Shaw. Nigel.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to the work programme. Some years ago, last time I was on this committee, we had a thing about consultations, the lack of public engagement, and it doesn't seem to have improved at all. So I would like to put that on there as well for us to look at.
I'm trying to think, Nigel, because I was chair back in 2013-14. Then I had my little sabbatical in the middle, if you remember. What was the when you say consultations? It's an open term. I'm just trying to
public consultations, because the thing is, you know, a lot of the consultations go out to stakeholders, and they're fair enough. They seem to work. But when it comes to public consultations, you get the same usual suspects answering only, and you don't get everybody's views on this. And there must be some way of organising it so people will actually respond, whether it be newspapers, ads in newspapers or what, I don't know. But this is something that does need to be sorted out, because all you're doing is getting the same people answering time and time again, and you're getting their opinions and nobody else's. And I find that ridiculous. Instead of being a public consultation, it's a limited email public consultation, and that's not good enough.
Okay. Well, and now you've mentioned that, and when you said about advertising, I've remembered it now. And I remember the room, and I remember Stacey being involved in that as well. That was a very long time ago. And what we looked at then with the limitations that existed then was a conclusion that it sort of was where it was at. But you're right, it was supposed to be an ongoing sort of look-see at it. I've remembered it now, Nigel. It might be worth, Emma, popping this on just to see, you know, if we could do a look-see at this in terms of the consultations that go on, what the return rates are. We all know they're low, but however, is that because people aren't interested? Or is it because it's not easy to access? You know, probably a bit of both. It might be worth putting on if the committee agree, just to have a look at how we consult at the moment, and could it be improved upon? What do you think, Emma and Sue?
Yeah, I find that, you know, calling it a public consultation isn't the right word. A limited email consultation at the moment is what it should be. And that's just not good enough, quite honestly.
Chairman, did you want me to?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Thanks, Emma.
I think what would be really good, because what we're trying to do with work that comes forward from overview and scrutiny to look at is to make sure that we're really clear on aims and objectives and what it is we're trying to achieve, which I think Councillor Shaw has verbalised. It would be really helpful if we can kind of get that in a more kind of concrete form, so we know exactly where we're going and we give you the right answer. So I think probably what we can do, if Sue can pop over an email to Councillor Shaw, just so that we absolutely capture that and we get that nailed right, so that going forward we make sure we're including the right thing on the work programme, and then we can then add that in based on that if the committee's happy to do so.
Yeah, and if you could copy me in, and Nigel, you copy me back in as well.
Absolutely.
Just on the form of words, and we should get there then. If everybody's happy with that, yes? Happy? Great, okie dokie. Okay, and you're going to be even more happier now, because that brings the meeting to an end, and that will make you smile. So thanks everyone.